Pleasant day, everyone. Let's explore how meaningful the stakeholder involvement in contributing to the creation of strong ethical frameworks within organizations. It is through our research entitled Designing Ethical Foundations: Importance of Stakeholder Engagement. Presenting our collaborative work, shared expertise, and investigative skills, I am Elizabeth Louise of Cruz, together with my co-researchers, Mr. Jebart P. Buluran, Ms. Shiela Mae C. Perez, and Ms. Rhinalyn Mae DC Teodoro.
I am Rhinalyn Mae DC, Teodoro, third year Bisay student from Buluran Polytechnic College. We often hear about the importance of ethical behavior in business. But what does that really mean in practice? A code of ethics provides a concrete framework for navigating ethical dilemmas and ensuring everyone within a company operates with integrity. It's more than just a set of rules. It's a living document that guides employees' decisions and actions, ensuring alignment with the company's values. This alignment is crucial for building trust with stakeholders and creating a positive and productive work environment. The business landscape is constantly evolving, and the expectation placed on companies are changing rapidly. Stakeholders are demanding more than just financial success. They want companies to be responsible members of society, contributing positively to the world around them. This shift towards corporate social responsibility, or the CSR, highlights the growing importance of ethical behavior in all aspects of business. Companies that embrace CSR often see benefits like enhanced brand reputation, increased employee loyalty, and a stronger competitive edge. Companies today are expected to balance their financial goals with societal goals, demonstrating a commitment to sustainability, social equity, and ethical practices. This means going beyond simply making a profit and actively contributing to a better future. The primary purposes of a code of ethics are: number one, define ethical standards. It clearly outlines the company's expectation for ethical conduct, providing a framework for making responsible decisions in various situations. Number two is ensure integrity, which it promotes a culture of honesty, transparency, and accountability, building trust with stakeholders and fostering a strong foundation for ethical decision making. Next is aligns company employee behavior. It helps employees understand the company's ethical expectation, empowering them to make responsible choices in their daily work. Let's delve into the purpose of this research. The purpose of this research is to develop a well-structured code of ethics for a hypothetical company. The goal is to create a guide that aligns with the company's values, meets industry standards, and adheres to legal obligations. An effectively designed code of ethics acts as a framework for ethical decision making. It helps all stakeholders, including employees, customers, and investors, uphold integrity, professionalism, and accountability. The research will explore how a well structured code of ethics can positively shape stakeholder conduct, influence decision making, and foster a positive workplace culture. This will involve analyzing the impact of different approaches to developing and implementing a code of ethics. Now, let's focus for the objectives of this study. This study aims to achieve the following objectives. Number one is to define the importance of a code of ethics. This objective examines why a code of ethics is essential for businesses, exploring its impact on organizational culture, employee behavior, and stakeholder trust. Number two is to analyze challenges and opportunities in implementing a code of ethics. This objective delves into the difficulties and advantages of adopting a code of ethics within a company, focusing on aspects like clarity, stakeholder engagement, enforcement, and adaptability. Number three is to establish guidelines for ethical decision making. This objective aims to provide a structured approach for stakeholders to navigate ethical dilemmas and make responsible choices in professional settings. Number four is to explore legal and corporate compliance. This objective examines how a code of ethics can ensure adherence to legal regulations, industry standards, and corporate governance requirements. And lastly, to assess the impact of codes of ethics on on organizational integrity. This objective investigates how well-implemented codes of ethics can enhance stakeholder confidence, improve decision-making processes, and strengthen organizations' reputation. Now, for the significance of the project. The implementation of a code of ethics plays a crucial role in shaping individual behaviors, organizational culture, and societal norms. This research underscores the significance of a code of ethics for key groups. One, of course, is the organizations. By adhering to ethical standards, organizations enhance their reputation, build trust, and attract investors, customers, and top talent. It helps reduce risk, ensure compliance with the regulations, and promote responsible and sustainable business practices. Number two is the employees. A strong code of ethics empowers employees to make ethical decisions, encourages fairness and transparency, and helps minimize conflicts. It fosters a culture of accountability, integrity, and trust within the workplace. For the third one, it's the society. A code of ethics pushes businesses to operate transparently, fairly, and responsibly. It encourages them to support societal goals like sustainability and social justice, creating a more just and equitable world. And of course, other stakeholders. Ethical practices significantly benefit stakeholders by fostering stronger relationships and trust. Investors and customers all gain from the enhanced transparency, accountability, and long-term stability driven by ethical business behavior. This study is structured into 5 chapters, which is the chapter 1, the introduction. This chapter will establish the foundation for the study by introducing the concept of a code of ethics and its significance in corporate governance, legal compliance, and workplace culture. We will emphasize the role of code of ethics in fostering trust, accountability, transparency, sustainability. The chapter 2, which is the discussion of key concepts. This chapter will delve into the theoretical framework for designing an effective code of ethics. We will explore key concepts like ethical principles, stakeholder engagement, implementation strategies, challenges, and opportunities. Chapter 3, which is the data gathering. This chapter will focus on the methods used to gather data for this research study. We will examine secondary sources like case studies, data analysis. And for chapter 4, which is the discussion, in this chapter we will present the research findings, analyze the collected data, and draw meaningful conclusion. This will include discussion of key findings, interpretation of data, and recommendations. And lastly, the executive summary. This final chapter provides a concise overview of the study's key findings and implications. It will highlight objective findings, analysis, conclusions, and recommendations that were presented.
Good day, everyone. Again, I am Elizabeth Louise F. Cruz, and I will discuss the chapter 2 of our paper. So let's start first with the definition of terms. First is accountability. Accountability, or being accountable, is the obligation to accept responsibility for your actions rather than pointing it out to others. And next is environmental stewardship. Environmental stewardship is the responsible use and protection of the natural environment through conservative and sustainable practices. Next is the law number 12846/13, or what we call the Brazilian Clean Company Act. So it addresses the issue of corruption by holding legal entities accountable for the actions that harms the public administration. So whether that organization or that business is in abroad or in Brazil, the law is applicable. And the next is legal risk. So it is the potential liabilities, penalties, or financial losses that an organization or individual may face due to violations of rules, regulations, or contracts. Next is the stakeholders. So they are the people or any individuals like the customers, employees, shareholders that have an interest or affected by the business decisions or actions. And the next is the standards. These are the established guidelines or benchmarks that define acceptable levels of quality, performance, or behaviors. So it states there how the stakeholders must act or how must they show their behavior within the business. Next is the unethical activity. So it refers to the actions or behaviors of an individual that violates the accepted moral principles or professional codes of ethics. So if someone is doing something not good, something not acceptable, or something that violates the business rules or standards, then it is considered as an ethical activity. And lastly is workplace diversity. So it is the representation of individuals with different backgrounds, different cultures, or different perspectives within an organization. So that concludes our definition of terms that you will encounter in our paper. Let's now move forward to our theoretical framework. So this framework serves as a guidelines on how to establish a well-structured code of ethics to ensure or to achieve fairness, accountability, and transparency all throughout the business operations. So we have here 7 steps. For the step 1, it is to establish the purpose and scope of the code. Step 2 is to identify the key values and principles. Step 3 is to develop a specific standards of behavior. Step 4 include consequences of non-compliance. Step 5 is to encourage reporting of violations. Step 6 is to review and update regularly. And lastly, Step 7 is to communicate the code of ethics. So we will further explain these steps in the following slides. Step 1 is to establish the purpose and scope of the code. So we need to answer the questions, why is it created? For what purpose and for whom? Is it for the shareholders, customers, or employees? We also need to know what areas of business it will cover. And once the step 1 is decided, we can now proceed to the step 2, identify key values and principles. We need to determine the core ethical values and concepts that will guide the company's behavior and culture, because it will serve as the basis for the stakeholders to know how must they act or how must they show their behavior within the organization. And it is also important to know that the values and the principles are aligned with the company's mission and vision to achieve success while complying with ethics. Moving on to step 3, develop a specific standards of behavior. So once the key values and principles are settled, it is now the time to turn the basic values and principles into actionable and clear directives for how the employees or the stakeholders must behave within the organization or in various scenarios that the business may face in. Next is step 4, include consequences of non-compliance. So clearly state what are the actions, what are the penalties will be taken if the code of ethics is violated. So of course, if the stakeholders commits unethical activities or doesn't follow what is stated in the code of ethics, they must face consequences despite of their position in the company. After that, it is also important to encourage reporting of violations. So how? It is by establishing a clear and accessible ways for employees or for the stakeholders to report any unethical behavior without fear of repercussions. So with this, they will have the confidence to speak up away from any manipulation. Step 6 is review and update regularly. So the business is highly encouraged to review and revise their code of ethics periodically to ensure its effectiveness and relevance. Because as the business being dynamic, some ethical standards may not be effective at all and some are needed to be replaced for the continuity of the successful business environment. And lastly, step 7, communicate the code of ethics. So we need to make sure that the code of ethics is effectively shared and understood by all employees and other relevant stakeholders for them to be aware for the right and wrong behaviors that they must do and avoid within the organization. And also to ensure its accessibility, it must be included in the orientation papers of the business. We will now discuss the challenges when designing code of ethics. It includes comprehensiveness. So when designing code of ethics, everything must be stated specifically, making it hard for the developers or for the designers to include everything while maintaining its clarity and detailed approach for the sake of the stakeholders. Next is effective enforcement. So everything stated in the code of ethics must be implemented or must be obeyed, because any inconsistencies can destroy trust of the stakeholders. Encouraging ethical reporting is challenging as it necessitates building trust and overcoming potential fear of retaliation, especially when the violators are from the higher level. And lastly is keeping the code relevant. So it presents a challenge because it requires a continuous monitoring of internal and external environment. It is also a proactive approach in updating the code to remain aligned with the evolving business needs and ethical standards. We are now going to discuss the opportunities in having a code of ethics. First, we have fostering a positive organizational image. So by clearly outlining ethical values and behaviors, the company projects an image of integrity, environmental stewardship, and responsibility to their stakeholders, like their customers, employees, shareholders, or to the public. This also aligns with the framework's goal to establish clear values and communicate with them effectively. Next is enhancing teamwork. So, a shared understanding of ethical expectation can build trust and cohesion among employees, leading to a positive collaboration and a more better work environment. Next opportunity is competitive advantage. So, having a strong ethical standing built on clear ethical values and conducts attract a stakeholders and enhances market positioning, because we know that the stakeholders likes it when an organization or when the business is established and well structured. And lastly is protecting assets. So through defined ethical standards and reporting mechanisms, it safeguards the organization's resources and reputation from harm. And that's all for our chapter 2. Thank you.
Good day everyone. My name is Jebart Buluran, and today I will be presenting the data collection part of our research study, which is entitled Code of Ethics and Conduct in the Light of Corporate Governance, the Stakeholders' Perspective. So, our focus on this study was to understand stakeholders with the implementation of a code of ethics and how it affects corporate governance. So, this slide shows one of the most important data we gathered was the noticeable increase percent in a compliance initiatives within a firm. So, in a simple term, more companies are actively adopting ethical practices and systems such as creating a code of ethics, organizing employee training, and regularly evaluating ethical conduct within the company. So this increase means that many businesses now recognize the value of ethics not just for compliance, but for the building trust with the stakeholders and long-term stability. So nakakatulong din ito for transparency, lalo na sa mga firm na nakipag-deals sa public contracts or foreign investors. So this shows na ethic is no longer a requirement. It is a becoming strategic tool. Basically, this brings us to one of the external drivers of this compliance is this law, which is law number 12,846/13, or also called Clean Company Act from Brazil. So basically, this is from Brazil. So this law makes company legally responsible from corruption and bribery, especially when dealing with public entities. So why do you think it's important? So importante daw itong law kasi it encourages organization to strengthen their internal ethical system like anti-bribery programs, whistleblowing mechanism, and regular audits. Sa madaling salita, if a company doesn't promote integrity internally, they can still be held liable under this law. So the next slide will be data presentation. So this table shows the distributions of the respondents is based on their roles or positions in a company. So it shows that the larger frequency or the larger portion is 117 out of 184 respondents, which is specialist, coordinator, and analyst. So this means na most of our data came from those individually who are actively involved in operations. So they also experience na ethical practices persons, kaya valuable ang insights nila. So the next group will be included managers and senior executives with 40 members, and also followed by smaller member of directors and audit committee. So, although na mas konti sila, the responses is still add value kasi especially in understanding how the ethics is viewed from a leadership perspective. And so, this table is also include data like average, percentage, and standard deviation. So, which help us to how consistent or spread out of responses are across from different positions. So, this slide emphasizes one of the most important findings from our data collections. So approximately 80% of the company surveyed confirmed that they have a code of ethics and conduct in a place. So that's a strong majority. And it shows that more and more organizations are taking ethical standards seriously. So having a formal code helps companies define what is acceptable behavior, reduce unethical practices, and protect both the company and its stakeholders. So this results aligns with the global trend that we discussed in our research. The karamihan na sa companies ngayon is ay proactive pagdating sa integrity, compliance, and transparency. We want to highlight here is the 17.9% is said no, and the other 3.3% is said they don't know if such a code exists in their company. So this tells us around 15 to 20% of the companies surveyed, they don't know if they have the code or they are aware or unaware of it. So ibig sabihin nito is kahit na may progress na, there are still gaps in ethical awareness in the policy implementation. So this number supports our studies points. Companies still need to get stronger communications and training when it comes to ethics. So this slide presents data about different versions of their code of ethics and conduct implemented by companies. So according to the results, 49.5% of a company only use single version of their code. So this means one general document in use for all stakeholders. Meanwhile, 32.6 of a company have multiple versions, so which means they have a customized code that highlight their adjustment for the needs of their stakeholders. However, 17.9 of respondents said that their company does not have a code of ethics and conduct in a place. So this table shows importance of adoption. While one version may be simpler, having multiple versions can lead better alignment with stakeholder expectations, legal requirements, and cultural differences. So this table shows how respondents perceive the implementations of good practices related to their company's code of ethics and conduct. So first, 47% agreed that the code was created with the company's culture in mind. However, when asked whether the employees were involved in creating the code, only 34% agreed. So this shows that the employees' engagement is not about only a priority in the development process. So next is only about 33% said that the law number 12,846 or over 13 influenced the company's decisions to adopt a code of ethics. So this suggests that for many firms, compliance is not always driven by law alone. Some may adopt ethical code as a strategy to build trust and reputation. So finally, when asked if the company provides training and communications about the code, only 47% agreed. So this highlights companies may have a code, but if they don't communicate it regularly, or so it may lose its impact. So overall, these tables confirm with our research emphasizes that having a code is just a first step. For to be effective, it must be developed with the employees' input, supported by law, and communicated through regular training. So that's it for my report. Next reporter will be Shiela Perez.
Good day everyone, I am Shiela Mae C. Perez and I will be presenting the analysis of collected data from our study. Based on the analysis po of whether the construction or the development of the Code of Ethics and Conduct considered the company's culture. So the result showed po na 47% of the respondent are fully agreed that the Code of Ethics reflects their company's culture, indicating strong alignment with its values and identity. Meanwhile, 16% po ang partially agree, showing that there are some alignment but noting areas for improvement. So overall po, 63% total agreement comprising 47 who are fully agree and 16% who are partially agree. Believe that their organization's code po considered the company's culture during its development. Next po is the employee involvement in creating the code. So here are the collected data po provides valuable insight into how employees participated in the development of the code. A total of 34% po ng participant ang fully agree that employees were involved, suggesting that a significant portion of the workforce feels that they had a voice in shaping the ethical guidelines. We also have 22% po of responded who are partially agree, indicating that while they have recognized some level of involvement, they may feel that the process could have been more inclusive. Overall po, this principle received 56% total agreement, reflecting a general positive perception of employee participation. However po, there are 27% of responded in total ang either partially or totally disagreed in the statement that employees were involved in the code's creation. This percentage po comes from the combined responses of 22% who are partially disagreed, implying some uncertainty or dissatisfaction regarding the level of involvement, and 5% who are totally disagreed, indicating that employees were not engaged in the creation process at all. Furthermore, we have 15% of the respondents indicated that the question does not apply to them, either because their organization does not have a formal code of ethics or they are unaware of its creation process. One of the key drivers for adapting integrity and compliance practices po is the Brazil's anti-corruption law or Law 12,846 of 2013. However, the survey shows po that a significant portion of respondents, which is 39%, did not perceive the law as a direct influence. So these figures po comprises 18% of total disagreed, meaning they are strongly believe that the law had a little or no role in shaping their organization's ethical guidelines. And 21% responded po who are indicated that the law did not apply to their situation or their organization does not have a formal code of ethics in place. So this suggested po that many companies view ethics as a strategic advantage beyond legal compliance, prioritizing trust building over merely following regulation. And lastly is the survey data assessing whether an organization provides regular training and communication about its code of ethics and conduct to new employees. So the majority of respondents, which is 54% in total, agreed that such training is provided. This total percentage is comprised of 47% who are totally or completely agreed and 7% who are partially agreed. This suggests a significant effort by the organization to ensure new employees po are informed about ethical standard and conduct. Overall, these findings reveal a clear shift in how organizations perceive and implement ethical standards within their operations or organization. There is a growing trend po of how companies adapt code of ethics as key component of their management practices, suggested that organizations are increasingly recognizing the importance of establishing ethical framework to guide behavior and decision-making within the workplace, fostering a culture of integrity and accountability. And according to Captain's 2004 findings po, 52.5% of the world's largest global companies had a code of ethics in place. This highlights po that a significant number of major corporations understand the value of ethical guidelines in shaping their practices and governance. Similarly po, in Brazil, a 2014 report by the Brazilian Institute of Ethics in Business revealed po that 41.6% of largest Brazilian companies had also implemented ethical codes. This shows po a strong adoption of ethical practices in Brazil's corporate sector, making a shift po towards a better governance. Research also indicates a high adoption rate of code of ethics among companies, with 80% of businesses implementing such codes. However po, there's a significant issue identified in the study, which is many companies po rely on a single or uniform version of their code. And this approach po may fail to address the diverse needs and concerns of the different stakeholders, potentially limiting the code's overall effectiveness. As a result po, the one-size-fits-all model could lead to gaps in ethical guidance and compliance. Therefore po, it is important for companies to keep revising and updating their code of ethics to make sure that it stays effective in guiding ethical decisions and maintaining a strong ethical culture. This means po customizing the code for different stakeholder groups, communicating it clearly, and setting up systems to ensure compliance and regular reviews. The regular updates po are needed to keep up with changing laws, societal expectation, and new business practices. Moreover, employee involvement in developing the code of ethics was moderate at 56%, suggesting an opportunity to increase engagement at all levels. Enhancing employee engagement po could lead to a more effective code that better aligns with the workforce values and concerns. This could be achieved po through a broader consultations, inclusive feedback mechanisms, and greater transparency in its development and implementation. For the justification of the data collection methods po, we have chosen to rely on secondary data. We decided to use secondary data po because gathering primary data can be quite challenging. Conducting interviews or surveys with our target respondents such as employees, business owners, managers, and customers can be complex and time-consuming. Therefore, secondary data po was considered a more practical and efficient option to support our research. Even though we use secondary data, we ensured its validity and reliability by sourcing information from credible materials such as academic journals, case study, and reputable websites. The authors of these sources po are recognized experts including students and professors with established background. which further assures the accuracy and credibility of the data used po in our study. Lastly po, regarding ethical consideration, we prioritize confidentiality by not including any personal information about the respondents. The data we use po is strictly for educational purposes and is presented without personal opinions or alterations. We also ensure po that all sources are properly cited to give credit to the original authors. By doing this po, we know that we stay true to the ethical standards, making sure that the issues like confidentiality and data integrity are carefully respected throughout the study. And that's all po. Thank you so much.
And that's it for the chapters 1 to 3 of our research report. Tune in for more information and discussion. Thank you.